morning, everyone. Leslie Simmons here. I'm with Amazon. I've been there for about 2 years, and I'm currently Global Head of Community Innovation, which basically means that I spend a lot of time looking at the communities where Amazon operates, which is probably all of where you are, to make sure that we are supporting the community in innovative ways using science and technology. So it's been a really exciting transition for me. I joined Amazon about 2 years ago as head of event content and internal communications for the Amazon Ads business. So my background has been in communication, marketing, and events and content in the technology space for about the last 15 years. Prior to Amazon, I was with Twitter. I've worked with Google, Facebook, Airbnb, and others, and I'm based in California, and really looking forward to talking to you all today.
Love it. And can I tell you, Suzanne, how obsessed I am with your shoes? I told her this morning, because she's in New York, I'm like, you're so New York, except for your shoes are so Vegas.
Had to be Vegas.
I love it.
Yeah, I'm channeling Elvis. I'm really excited to have an opportunity to wear these. So thank you for giving me that. It was something of, I'll confess, I didn't wear them walking through the lobby, but I was thinking, okay, 7 o'clock in the morning walking down here, can I get away with them? But I'm going to keep them on. I wasn't sure if I was going to switch back to my flats. But nice to meet you all. I'm Suzanne Hogan. I work at the New York Times. I focus on B2B events. So my charge is to help our sales team connect with our advertisers. So we do all different types of things, from industry events. We do hosted events that we own, where it might be a small, intimate retreat. And we do a lot of regional events for different kind of targeted audiences, dinners, cocktail parties, etc. But I have over 20 years experience in the game and have been really excited to be able to work for not-for-profits, for very profitable companies as well. So it's given me a chance to get creative with budgets and to also have some fun, which is part of why I got into events in the first place, to be able to travel on someone else's dime and to provide hospitality for people.
I love it. And we had a really great panel yesterday where we're talking about meetings and events, which might tie into some of what we talk about today too, which I think is great. Denise.
Yeah, hi everyone, nice to meet you. I'm Denise Hibbard, head of events marketing at Zapier. I joined the team 2 years ago as well. I think all of us made a switch during the pandemic with the goal of introducing the first ever virtual conference and scale up their events marketing program. I've been in the event space for 12 years now, but a mix of marketing, generalist roles. Went to school for aviation, so definitely never expected to be here on this stage, but I think I just fell in love with creating experiences for folks through some of the work that I was able to do in college, and made the switch partially through my time there, but I'm really excited to be speaking with all of you here.
Okay, went to school for aviation. Does that mean you can fly something? Like a plane? A helicopter?
I could fly. My license is very expired, so not legally, but in practice, yes, we could get up in a plane together. Just,
if a plane was going down, you could save us.
I could try.
I saw an article recently that there was like this study done where it's like all of these people say that yes, they could fly the plane, they would save, and really the article was like, it's so technical, like nobody can actually pull it off.
The 747 is a very different game than a single prop plane that I've flown.
I love that. So I think storytelling is something that really unites everybody in the room, whether you work for a destination marketing organization, or you're in marketing in some way, or you're in events, or you work for a company that supports those things. So we're going to start off talking about storytelling, and what is it about storytelling where you can really make it resonate with your audience and your experience, whether that's through the event piece of it or what has worked for you. You want to start?
I'll start? Yeah, I'll take that one. So I think it's really important when you're thinking about storytelling, you have to start with your audience, and it's so easy when you've been working on an event or a program or something that you've done historically to sort of repeat and experience what you've done in the past. And I think especially now coming out of the pandemic, audiences are really looking for something new, something engaging, something that's going to get them out out of their homes, out of their offices, out of their own sort of bubbles to come and experience whatever you're offering them. So the story has to reflect them in some way. And it can be challenging to do that again when you're sort of just reinventing what you've already done. So I think you have to stay abreast of what your community is really thinking about, what they're talking about, what's important to them, and make sure that that's reflected in the work that you're doing. And that means that you might have to find some new sources of inspiration, some new partners, some new venues, all sorts of things to sort of mix up what you've done. But those are ways to really sort of keep your story fresh and have folks want to continue to engage.
I love that. And so I think of yesterday, I really can't get the doll heads out of my head. So Atlanta has this really great kind of off the beaten path things that they have. So they showcased some of that yesterday. And one of them, this is so creepy. I can't even believe I'm talking about. This is I had dreams about this last night. There's these
very intrigued.
Doll heads that are all over a certain area, and you can go through this trail and see them. Forget the ale trail. It's the doll head trail. So
Are they doll size, or are they larger that look like dolls?
I don't know. Where's my Broadway Atlanta guy? Are they all sizes? Yeah, all different sizes. By the way, he's been on Broadway.
I'm obsessed.
He should do a dance for us later, I think. But so my point is the storytelling piece, finding that unique thing with your community, right? What do you guys think?
I think for me, storytelling tugs at emotions, and at the end of the day, we're speaking to humans. I work in B2B, and it's easy to kind of get wrapped up in the idea that you're trying to appeal to an organization, but for us, it presents itself as looking at our customer base and finding the interesting stories that they have to tell. For our conference this past year, we have this incredible customer. He started up the Georgia Innocence Project, which works on helping wrongly convicted folks get the justice that they deserve, helps get them out of jail, and we were able to tell his story. He, first and foremost, is a fantastic storyteller, obviously uses our product, but after that session that we held with him, our customers left just saying, I didn't realize I was going to binge watch, a Netflix series for 30 minutes. I didn't expect to cry at this conference. And it was something about that experience that just really elevated not only our customer, but also just that this isn't just a piece of technology. It's not just a product, that this has the power to move people forward. And I think that can really bring people along that journey for you. And for us too, it's turned into an awesome program now where we're launching a podcast in a couple weeks that speaks about his journey, and it's turned into a whole content strategy essentially for us.
So do we have any true crime podcast people in here? They are serious. That's a serious group of people.
Exactly. I think over the pandemic, it seems like that just flourished.
Yes. And I don't know. So I used to be a criminal prosecutor in Miami, Florida. And so I even like to geek out over true crime because it's I don't know. It has nothing to do with travel, right? But it's so fascinating. And I think it's something you can binge watch. Okay, so I did tell them about the cowbells. But I think what is important here, because this is context, can you say what your product is so they understand how it's used in this context?
Sure, yes. I did learn about the cowbells. I love that. So I work for Zapier. We're an automation company. And so if you have a couple different pieces of tech that don't talk to each other, they don't natively integrate, our software allows you to do that. So when you think of the Georgia Innocence Project, yes, that probably would not be the first thing that you would necessarily pair with our brand, but gosh, our customers just get to do some really amazing things, and they're really changing the world, and to be able to elevate those stories is 10x better than me just, talking about our product.
So the New York Times, is there a brand associated with storytelling more than the New York Times? Really?
No pressure to
right.
try to do that with events.
Right? So how important is storytelling in what you do?
Extremely. A lot of it also is playing into people's passions. And so for us, and especially since We have a different team that does do consumer and subscriber events, and it's about engaging with our editorial team and so on, our talent. But for our clients, we do look at what do we have in our armada of products and services. And Wordle, you've probably heard of it. We did acquire that last year, and so bringing things like Wordle to life at an event for a surprise and delight moment is a really nice opportunity. We have a B2B event that we did last year in France, and part of that involved creating a Games Park activation, and we were able to invite people in, not just to play Wordle, but also to do a crossword mini. We had custom games that we created, Spelling Bee, and so beyond hard news, we have all these other facets to the Times. So we ended up utilizing a street team. We went to the airport, so as people got off the planes and they're waiting for their luggage, you can scan a QR code and play the game. We had it for the time zone, changing at midnight every day the way that you would for the ones here domestically in the US. And then on site at our game park, we also had the QR code physically on the outside where people were queuing up for lines to get into these award events that were every evening, and that way they could also play. So it was a really fun thing of a physical activation where you can engage with our games. If you were walking by, or everyone, we're always on our phones when we're waiting anyway, why not play the game? And it was fun, and it was cool to have people come to our space and talk about how that is a ritual and something that they're passionate about doing with their family or friends, and maybe they have a chat going where they're all comparing their scores and how many tries did it take. So it was really nice to be able to do that, and then of course get some leads and all the things that we need to do to fund these fun things that we have the opportunities to try out.
I love it. So one of the things that I think is really important with this group, there's a range of folks and experiences. Some may be a little early on in their career, some maybe have tons and tons of experience. And I think the three of you have the most fascinating career paths. And each of you have been in your current position for about 2 years. And so that's interesting. So switching gears as kind of like maybe sharing your experience and helping people who are looking at their own experiences and the path that they're going to blaze. What has been key for you in your path that's really brought you to where you are now?
Do you want to go?
Sure. Okay. I'll go ahead. I think for me, I crave adventure. I also, I think oftentimes we're kind of told that there is a right way of moving up in the corporate world, or, setting specific goals for where you expect to be in 50 years. And I think for me, it's just been embracing the challenge, embracing change, and being ready for the unexpected. Coming in with that level of mindfulness has kind of made every moment special, as opposed to kind of forcing me into a bucket where I'm constantly feeling like I'm not far enough along in my career, or maybe I've taken the wrong path. Certainly, events falling into my lap, this is not where I thought I was going to be, and gosh, I'm so happy I'm here. So I think it really takes that joy, bringing that joy into every day has been something that's probably made me what I am today, and made it such a fun journey.
I think that I'm probably more unique in that I actually studied events. Not a lot of people study what they're doing, 20-something years later. So I always knew that I was into hospitality. I love engaging with folks, making sure that the people that are on the fringe are comfortable and feel included. So to be able to do that, starting with venues in college and working as interns wherever I could get my foot in the door was part of it. And then I started off with a company called Gartner that does IT research right out of school, and I actually got the job before I graduated, which again is not something that necessarily can happen these days. But it was a huge department, very deep, with a lot of professionals with a gamut of experience, and that gave me a really nice foundation to understand process, to understand templates, and then have some courage later on to be able to try different things. But I've worked, as I said, for not-for-profits, where it's just a different monster altogether, to doing very profitable, or working with profitable teams and just wacky budgets from ad tech and so on. And now at this point, after going, kind of up and down with that ride, to be in I believe like a mission-driven company is really important to me. And if I were to ever look, and I hope nobody from the Times is in the room, but if I were ever to look for something else, I think that that's something that's going to stick for me, to be able to work for a team that's working on projects and some sort of products that do mean something to beyond just, having a fun party?
For me, I actually studied journalism in school. I knew really early on that I wanted to be a writer. I was editor of my high school paper. I studied journalism and economics in college. I had this grand vision. I went to school in DC that I was going to be the econ writer for the Washington Post. I ended up working for the Post in sports. And that was actually the first time that I realized that my skill set was really translatable to other areas. And so I worked as a reporter for a number of years. Then I actually transitioned to public relations, did that work for a number of years. I worked for the American Red Cross, actually running disaster comms. So I used to travel to tornado scenes and hurricanes and all of those things, really helping to make sure that the information about what was happening on the ground was getting out to the wider population. So those were sort of experiences that I never really anticipated. Those weren't paths that I sort of mapped out for myself. And even now, as I transition then years later into marketing and communications for technology, I've always just tried to really stay open to possibilities. I love to talk to folks, and most of the times when I've moved into a new job, it's because someone that I've talked to 6 months ago or 6 years ago has said, hey, remember that conversation that we had? I have a role open, or I heard about something. Would you be interested in doing this? And so I always like to sort of lead with that curiosity, and I think that's helped with my career, and I think it's helped a lot with the success that I've brought into my roles and my projects, because I'm thinking about, okay, I got here unexpectedly, so what can we do while we're here? We have really incredible opportunities. A lot of the things that, you all do in this room that we're doing can really deeply impact people's lives in really unique ways. So I just try to think about that and maintain that energy and excitement as I'm going through my day to day.
I love that so much, and we have something in common. So I'm a journalist as well.
Hey.
Yeah. So when I mentioned that I used to be a criminal prosecutor.
How many jobs have you had?
Way
Actually,
too
how many careers?
I lack so much focus. But when I was a criminal prosecutor in Miami, I was doing domestic violence cases, which was very heavy. And I had graduated with my journalism degree before law school. And so I was also fresh off the wagon train from Kansas. So Miami was just kind of this crazy beast of a place. And so I started writing for free for a society blog and wrote hundreds and hundreds of articles for free. It's okay, go to court. And then afterwards, in this beautiful American Red Cross gala. And so it led me to travel and tourism, because Visit Florida hired me to be one of their insiders, which were influencers before they were influencers. And I covered luxury and entertainment, which just took off in this entire different direction. So then I had the tourism travel track, and then also the writing track, and ended up writing for a bunch of big name magazines and things like that. And so what I love about our different stories is kind of just being in that moment, but I also think it's the people. So it's us who now have this chance to build into the next group of folks as whether it's just they're coming up through the industries, or they want to change industries. And so this is me being crazy. I want to throw something out there for the audience today, which is, here we are with this incredible panel of people, and we've had incredible groups speaking to us today and yesterday and tomorrow. But one of the things that I think is really, really important that I want you to take away from eTourism Summit is your connections here. And so hopefully you met people yesterday, hopefully you met people last night, but can I challenge you to meet the people at your table today and get their LinkedIn? That way, it's not that business cards get lost, but get their LinkedIn. That way you can follow them and they can follow you in your career. And then next year at eTourism Summit, you see them and then you develop a relationship. So can I challenge you to do that today? 5. I want you to get 5 LinkedIn contacts by the end of the day. And sometimes it takes the chatty people like me to bring out the other people. So if you're chatty, you go up to somebody else and say, hey, I would love to connect with you on LinkedIn. That's all you got to do. It doesn't have to be creepy. If it was me, I'm creepy, so you just have to deal with it. But will you do that? Because that's what I'm hearing here too, is that it's the people around you that really offer up the new opportunities, and I think that's key.
Can I just add one quick thing to that? So when you connect with these people, you don't have to be creepy about it, as Kara said, but make sure you follow up. I cannot tell you how many times I meet people at a meeting, a conference, or event, and I never hear from them until 4 years later when they're job hunting, and they remember, oh, I have this person that I know at Amazon, maybe they'll send me a referral. So being the person that follows up and stays connected is very rare and unique, and that will help you stand out, and that will help make your connection more authentic. It doesn't have to be anything, weird, but you can just respond to someone's LinkedIn post or send a quick note. Those things really do stand out.
Yes, I love that. So as we're looking at your experience in your careers and your respective industries, how do you think it's informed your approach to marketing?
I'll kick this one off.
Okay.
I think, especially now, we have so many different tools with technology, which is supposed to help us. When it comes down to it, we were chatting earlier that a lot of this also is about the connections that you make and getting inspiration and just hearing tips and tricks from various folks that we have networked with. Utilizing some of the experiences that I had, again, of having very low budgets and trying to figure out how to make dollars stretch, having to really push the limit on getting creative. How are we going to make something happen? We don't want anyone to know that we're, under this restraint of whatever budget demands might be, is really, obviously important. But that's informed a lot of how I approach things. And when you're able to go to your boss after an event and say, oh, we came this far under budget, obviously everyone's excited. And now being more involved in strategy, I'm in a different way aware of the potential danger of doing that too much, and trying to give really good forecasts about this is how much something is going to cost and how many things that we can do so that we're not over-delivering over and over again, so that when we go to plan for the next year, it's something where we're working with these really unrealistic goals. So that fine line in between. But so in general, taking those experiences and applying them to what it is that we can do and to really stretch and get the most out of it is something that I'm very proud to be able to do. And then on the flip side, having partners when we do have ample budgets to help push us and introduce different ideas of really extravagant things that you could do. And even if we're not going to do exactly what they first pitch in their RFPs and whatnot, even if we could just take a few of those ideas and apply them, is huge. And so that's how I would approach it.
I love it. Anybody else want to jump in?
I'll just add, thinking right now, especially for a lot of us who have frozen or even shrinking budgets, I would encourage folks to think about how to get more added value out of what's already in your current ecosystem. An example that I'll give is last fall, my team was working on a conference, and we obviously didn't have the massive marketing budget that we had had in years past. So a very simple tactic that we took was leveraging our speakers to do more of our promotion around our event. So we created very simple, lightweight social tools that the speakers could use to share on LinkedIn, share on Instagram, share on other places that talked about their work, but also had a registration link back to our conference, which was free for virtual attendees, and there was a discount code if you used one of the speakers' links to register in person. We saw a 40% bump in registrations through those links, which no one had anticipated, and it was something that really helped us. It sort of saved us in the end of having to do that last minute rush of how are we going to get folks in the door, we're not selling tickets, and that was very organic engagement. So that was something that we hadn't done in the past. It was a very, a fairly simple fix, and it also didn't add a lot of additional work for our team. So I just encourage you to partner with your partners, with your colleagues, to think about ways to add those sort of simple solutions sometimes that can really make a big difference.
Denise, did you want to add something in?
Oh, there's been so much good stuff already mentioned here. Co-marketing, big fan of it. Separate from that, I think for me, it's similar path. I've worked on scrappy events. I've had big budgets on the opposite end, and I think both of those have kind of taught me how to balance, look at prioritization. But more than that, I think working in the consumer packaged good industry, which was the first job that I had in events, there was just an element of play that was woven into the events that we did that I think I've tried so passionately to bring into all of my events, even coming now into the B2B space that could, for all intents and purposes, seem kind of like a boring industry. But remembering again, back to the storytelling that we're speaking to humans, that humans want to feel wonder, they want to feel excitement. I think that's something that you all are in a position to do quite easily. But for us in the B2B space has been important for me.
I think that's great, and I think it's incredible learning from those different experiences, and now I'm going to take us down a dark path. So, I'm not going to use the word failure because it's so strong, but I think we all come through challenges, whether it's in our careers or through a project that we're working on, and you come out on the other side, and it could be something as big as everybody's going through a pandemic, and that's crazy, and you have to figure out resiliency. Or it may be something like you tried something that was risky and it didn't work the way you thought and you had to pivot. So can you take us behind the scenes? Is there a challenge that you've overcome and now you're on the other side of it and you're better for it?
I can get into it. I did an event in Austin, Texas, 5 or 6 years ago. We brought a group of senior level executives to Hill Country outside of Austin. It was a retreat atmosphere. We wanted to have their engagement. We didn't want them to get distracted, but we gave in that we brought them down to downtown for a dinner. We bought out a very well-known restaurant for barbecue. So we were excited. Okay, great, we're giving them the Austin experience. After everyone ate, we wanted them to get on the bus and come back, and we were going to do an after party in the Hill Country area at our resort, and nobody wanted to go back. They were so excited to be downtown. They started scattering. The sellers were coordinating, okay, well, these are the bars that we're going to go check out, and this is the lineup, and blah, 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 and everyone scattered. And so my team and my boss, everyone was like, we have this bus, we have, things planned, what is happening? And at that moment, my heart sunk, and I was like, no, you guys don't understand, we have an agenda. And then I realized very quickly, okay, this is what they want. We made sure that everyone was at least paired up with one of our sellers to go out and explore the town. And then they ended up just, as people do, taking Ubers and Lyfts and so on to get back to the resort. And we kind of took an exhale, and it hit me after the fact of, man, we cannot fight with whatever the natural environment is of where we're bringing people. And even coming here to Vegas, we want to be able to experience it. You're going to go back. You don't want to brag too much that you're having a lot of fun, but certainly to your friends and family, it's, oh, you went there for a work event, but what did you do? Did you go to casinos? Did you see a show? I learned in that moment that we really do have to embrace whatever those amazing anchor aspects of the venues are and the destinations are to give people that. So it was a moment where everyone still had a good time. It just didn't exactly work out with our exact plan from the beginning.
That's a great example. I love it. Anybody else want to jump in on that?
I can share one that happened right at the beginning of the pandemic. So in March 2022, my team was en route to New York for a series of events for a new event that we were producing at Twitter. And this was something that had been almost a year in the works. It was a new organization internally called Twitter Voices, and we'd really curated a really incredible group of speakers and attendees at this event. It was invite only. Our CEO was coming, a lot of our execs were on the way, some of the team was already in New York, and then we all started hearing a lot about COVID. And our own security team actually issued a statement that they wanted to cancel employee travel while people sort of figured out what was going on. So again, some of our team's already in New York. We are asking about 300 people to join us in New York. And so we had to really make the decision quickly to cancel this event, which we knew was going to be heartbreaking for not only the internal teams, but also for our attendees who were, again, a part of this curated event, who'd helped create the agenda. And, we took some time to think about the right approach to do this. And ultimately, we realized that transparency is what everyone needed. As a company, if we decided that we didn't want our employees to travel, we weren't going to ask others to do that as well. And so, the event was starting on Tuesday. This is a Saturday, so you can imagine that Sunday and Monday, we're calling everyone. But we just decided, let's pick up the phone, let's talk to people, let's just be really transparent about what's going on. I would say probably about a third of the folks were like, what's COVID? What are you talking about? Like coronavirus? I have no idea what this is. Some other folks were like, oh, I heard about that, but it doesn't seem that bad. I think you guys are overreacting. And then other people were like, fine, whatever, I'll see you next time. So, it was really kind of, it was just a surreal experience that we had to scale this down so quickly. And we committed at that time also to really stay engaged with the community. And that made a major difference because we were able to transition some of those events to virtual. And over time, we heard back from a lot of folks with real gratitude that there was a company that was willing to sort of look out for their health and wellness, even when they didn't have information, that we had a little bit of information and insight that we were willing to share. So maybe not quite a failure, but, we just had to acknowledge that all of our hard work was not going to come to fruition in the way that we had envisioned, but that definitely didn't mean that that work was wasted. And so I think that was the ultimate lesson out of that experience.
Absolutely. Good stuff. Denise?
I've got a learning as well. So mine came during the pandemic as well, but it stems around gamification. So during the pandemic, like many folks, we pivoted our in-person conference to a virtual conference, and I think at that point, engagement was something that everybody was really talking about. And so for us, we came in with the mentality that we really need to figure out a way to get folks to join our live streams, to engage with our sponsors, to actively participate, and there wasn't a lot of options, at least that were within our price point at that point for gamification. We only had a couple months to pivot, so keep in mind, very quick decisions across the board. And so we made the move to implement a QR code-based game, kind of like a scavenger hunt. So people had to watch our videos, get to certain points, find the QR code. It was intended to be difficult so that folks couldn't game the system. While not the biggest, pitfall of the event, I would say we offered too high a value of giveaways because the chat was popping about all the wrong things. It was popping about, how do I win a drone? How do I get these points? Does anyone have the QR code? Can somebody email me the QR code? Lesson learned, I do not offer giveaways now over about $100 in value, and we try to make things as easy and transparent as possible.
I failed so hard like a month ago on something. So keeping with the pandemic theme and hybrid events, you would think by now, like maybe I could pull off a hybrid event. Just a board meeting, some people in person, some people on Zoom. It was such a disaster, and there was no way to save it because I don't have some sort of wizardry when it comes to technology. And so we just laughed it off. Can I pick on the Atlanta guy again? Because he told me yesterday that if he tripped on stage, he was just gonna do a kickball change. And so that speaks to me so hard because that's what I would do. That's what I did that day. It was just kind of put on a show and laugh about it because the technology failed so hard, and so did I. And I fortunately still have my job somehow. I don't know. But good stuff.
Is it a failure if nobody sees? I mean, especially in events, there's so many things that happen backstage that hopefully the audience doesn't know about. So, yes, no problem. It's fine.
I mean,
right?
have any of us thrown an event where something doesn't go wrong? Whether or not somebody sees it is a different story, but that's kind of, we're firefighting constantly.
And I think if it comes off that way, or you don't see the things that are happening that are wrong, then I'm always kind of looking for it because it doesn't exist. And so, oh my gosh, everything seems to be fine to me. Somebody else on my team must be going through something, and I check in with them.
In the closet that we don't know about.
Absolutely.
Very true.
Yes. So I guess switching gears now to the other side of it, give us something super successful. Like maybe you even surprised and delighted yourself because you had high goals, but wow, like you killed it.
I can take a stab at this. It's not the most exciting, event per se. However, it was an experiment that went a lot better than we thought it would have. So we've been trying to find ways to mindfully repurpose a lot of our content across our virtual events. And one thing, and for background, I think I said this earlier, but events are brand new to our company. So we're still in kind of that learning phase. And one thing we wanted to experiment with is, we're a really small team across the board. We wanted to have some events throughout the end of the year, but we just frankly didn't have the time to put anything together. And so we were curious, could we repurpose our sessions as a webinar series? We were very upfront and honest on these are re-aired sessions. We had live Q&A at the end, so it was a combination of simulated live and live. In the middle of December, which is, but from all intensive purposes, checking all the boxes of things you should not do in events. We had the highest registration and attendance for our entire webinar program for the entire year. So I think it just goes to say, and I'm not recommending that everybody repurpose, videos as your entire webinar strategy, but, test the model, experiment, because you might be surprised that some things work, especially when you can find those low lift ways to approach and get impact from the programs you're putting together.
That's good.
I'll share something a few years ago at South by Southwest. Again, this is a Twitter story. We had spent the prior few years having our executives and senior leaders do a lot of the conversations as a part of our programming, which is pretty standard. And I really wanted to try for something new, so I think the concept of experimentation is really important. So I pitched to our leadership team, instead of having certain execs interview celebrities, how about if we had industry leaders interview each other on stage? And so I was able to put together a conversation with Mark Cuban, who's obviously a very well-known investor, and Arlen Hamilton, who's an up-and-coming investor in California. I was blown away by the response. We had a line double what we would typically see outside this session. It was beyond everyone's expectations in terms of attendance, and the conversation between the two of them was so organic, so incredible, that people will still reach out to me and ask about how that came together, how that worked out. I think it's just thinking about how, again, to mix things up a little bit, and I think a lot of our leadership sometimes can be very wedded to these opportunities. Maybe they're always the opening speaker at your event or the closing speaker or something along those lines. And it can be kind of hard to change that. So I didn't get rid of all of them, but we just tried this for one. And it went so well that I think it gave the leadership the confidence that they don't always have to be the face of the conversation, and you can engage community more organically by letting others be a part of that. So that's just one example.
That's so good. And mentioning Mark Cuban, so Shark Tank is gotta be like one of my favorite shows of all time. And I don't remember what show it was, and it wasn't one of the like permanent sharks that said it, but it's my favorite quote of all time. And so I'm gonna ask you kind of like what your best advice is, like, or either advice that somebody's given you or that you picked up somewhere that has just stuck with you. So mine comes from Shark Tank, and it's ideas are cheap, execution is everything. Because I love that. I love how you can come up with like something really awesome. You can have a great brainstorming session, but unless you can actually pull it off, what does it actually mean? So speaking of Mark Cuban, do you guys have anything that's like stuck with you, like whether it's advice that somebody's given to you, or you've just seen it, or it's some like a core value of yours?
My dad is a little outgoing, a little crazy, and he was with one company for 20-something years and was let go. He came home, my mother warned me, she had a cocktail waiting for him, like as he was walking in the door, and he, anyway, I guess probably told his boss to F off, to be honest. So he's very straightforward, but one thing that he said to me that I think about all the time, especially if I'm going to in a potentially intimidating situation, speaking with the C-suite or so on, is that everyone puts their pants on the same way.
Yeah.
And I think about that all the time. And when I was little, he used to say it, and I didn't quite get it. I'm like, but what? Some people wear skirts, some people wear, different things. And he's like, so you can't just jump in. You have to do it 1 foot at a time. We're all the same. We're all coming from the same thing. We're all human beings. And it really puts into perspective when you're speaking to somebody that you think is at this level. We're all at the same level. We all have the potential, to give each other value. And to help each other. I mean, so many ways that you could apply it. But I think about that all the time, and I've caught myself saying that to people that are a little bit younger on my teams. And at first I see them scratching their head about, like, what is she talking about? And then I see when the light bulb clicks. And while my father's still with me, he's still alive, I tell him that I reference that a lot, and it makes him feel really proud.
I love that. That's really good.
That's an amazing story. I love that. Yeah, for me, I think mine, the best advice that I've gotten actually came recently, and it's something I've kind of adopted recently just as I think about how I go about creative ideation with my team, approaching conflict even at work, and it's that everybody's always 10% right. When you approach something from this aspect, you could take the wildest, most unreasonable idea in the world and find the 10% and build upon it. And it makes you a better collaborator. It gives you an open mind when coming into conversations. It helps, avoid the space of just, especially, coming into, or as a manager, making sure that I'm consistently working with my team on their ideas and not just, coming in with all the reasons we can't do something. Instead, always finding that 10% and then building upon it.
There's a quote that's attributed to Maya Angelou, and it basically says, you can't run out of creativity. The more you use, the more you have. And I think about that a lot. I remember there being a point in my career where, I'm feeling like I'm pushing myself to come up with more and more creative ideas and thinking like, should I save some of these? Should I share everything that I have? And I've realized it's best to just put your ideas out on the table. You will come up with more ideas. To your point, whether or not you can execute them is something else, but don't hold back on your own creativity or stifle yourself because you think that you will run out. It's not a finite resource. The more you want to dig and pull and look for inspiration, you can find it.
Oh, that's so good. I love that.
Yeah, I'm so excited to stay in touch with you both after this and just continue to, get these ideas from
Same.
you.
Yeah, very much so.
LinkedIn as soon as we get off stage.
LinkedIn.
We'll be a part of that.
Yes. So can we give this panel a hand? Really appreciate their wisdom and guidance. And hopefully you were able to take some nuggets for you, whether it's your career path or just some inspiration from what they've done. I think that this group of women is incredibly inspirational. So we really appreciate the time that you've spent with us today. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you all for having us.